They cut the power to the elevator while she was still inside. The lights snapped off without warning, plunging the narrow steel box into darkness. The car shuddered, then stopped hard between floors, metal screaming as the brakes locked. Inside, Angela Brooks felt the air leave her lungs in one sharp pull. Her palms slapped the wall by instinct. Cold steel, no give, no light. Just the low hum of a dying emergency system and the faint smell of oil. Someone outside laughed. Not loud, not kind. A soft, careless laugh that drifted through the closed doors like smoke. Angela swallowed. Her throat burned. She pressed the call button. Nothing. Pressed again. Still nothing. The red emergency light flickered, once, then went dead. Somewhere above her heels clicked across marble. A woman's voice followed tight with irritation. She should have taken the service stairs. I told them not to let her use the main lift. Another voicemail lower, amused. Relax, it's just a few minutes. Few. Might teach her something. Inside the elevator, Angela closed her eyes. Her breath came shallow now, fast. She counted it the way the doctor had taught her mother. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow, controlled. She refused to knock, refused to beg. She stood still, spine-straight grocery bag, clutched against her coat like a shield. This was not an accident. She knew that the same way she knew when rain was coming, the pressure change before the storm. The building had cameras, backup generators, protocols. Someone had made a choice. 10 minutes passed, or maybe 15. Time warped in the dark. When the doors finally jolted open, light flooded in so suddenly it hurt. Angela blinked. A small crowd stood waiting in the corridor, dressed in winter whites and tailored grays coats, draped over arms, wine glasses already in hand. The penthouse floor. She recognized the polished limestone, the art that looked like accidents framed in gold. Margaret Whitmore stood at the front, lips pressed, thin eyes, sharp as broken glass. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look embarrassed. You're blocking the hallway, Margaret said. Try to be more aware. Angela stepped out. Her legs trembled once, then steadied. She nodded once. Yes, ma'am. That was all she said. She moved aside, made space. As she always did. They flowed past her like she wasn't there. Conversations resumed mid-sentence. Stock prices, a charity auction. Someone complained about the heating being too warm for mink. Angela waited until the last of them disappeared into the open living room before she exhaled. Her heart still pounded. Not from fear, from anger held too long. She had arrived early. She always did. The grocery bag held what Margaret had texted that morning in clipped demands. Imported mineral water, gluten-free crackers no one would touch, fresh flowers from a shop across town because the florist downstairs was unreliable. Angela had paid up front. Again. The penthouse smelled like money and citrus cleaner. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city laid out like a circuit board, lights blinking in quiet rhythm. Somewhere, a pianist tested keys. Soft. Distant. The evening was already in motion. Angela set the bag down in the kitchen. Stainless steel gleamed. Everything had its place. She moved efficiently, shoulders squared, face neutral. Years of practice had taught her how to disappear without seeming slow. Margaret entered behind her. Angela felt it before she heard it. The shift in air. The expectation of obedience. You're late, Margaret said. Angela checked the clock on the wall. 10 minutes early. She said nothing. Margaret circled her, once eyes scanning her coat, her shoes the faint fray at one glove. We have donors coming tonight, important ones. I don't want distractions. Angela met her gaze briefly, then looked away. Understood. Margaret's mouth twitched. Good. Start with the living room. And Angela. Don't touch the west side shelves. The sculpture is fragile and expensive. I know, Angela said quietly. She did know. She had dusted around it for 6 months without incident. But Margaret smiled anyway, the kind of smile that wasn't meant to be returned. As Angela worked, the apartment filled. Voices layered. Laughter rose and fell. A man with a booming laugh clapped someone on the back too hard. A woman complained that the champagne wasn't cold enough. Another asked if the help could be quieter. Angela moved through it all like a current. She poured. She cleared. She listened without reacting. She heard things people assumed she wouldn't understand. About layoffs. About zoning loopholes. About how easy it was to make a problem disappear if you knew the right people. At one point, a guest snapped his fingers at her without looking. "Miss." "My glass." Angela refilled it. Their eyes met for half a second. His were empty, already gone. Then it happened. A sharp crack cut through the room. Glass. Someone cursed. Red spread across the white rug near the fireplace, blooming fast. "Oh, for God's sake," Margaret said loudly. She held a broken tumbler, wine dripping from her fingers. "Angela!" The room quieted. Heads turned. "Yes, ma'am," Angela said. Margaret looked down at the rug, then at Angela. "Clean it. Now. Before it stains." Angela knelt. The rug was thick, absorbent. The wine had already sunk deep. She pressed a cloth down hands steady. Around her, conversation restarted lower now like static. Someone joked about clumsiness. Someone else laughed. Angela focused on the stain, on the fibers, on not thinking about her mother alone in a hospital room across town, the nurse's voicemail still unread in her pocket. Then the apartment doors opened. No announcement, no flourish. Just a shift so sudden it rippled through the room. The first thing people noticed was the silence. Conversation stopped mid-breath. Laughter died unfinished. Even the piano cut out one last note hanging before falling away. The man who entered didn't rush. He didn't scan the room nervously. He took in everything at once, eyes calm, assessing. Dark coat. No tie. The kind of posture that didn't need space made for it. Angela felt it before she saw him. The weight of attention shifting. The way bodies straightened. The way Margaret's hand tightened around her napkin. Someone whispered a name. Victor Romano. Angela stayed kneeling. Her hands didn't shake, but her pulse jumped sharp and fast like a warning bell. Victor's gaze moved across the room, over the art, the guests, the broken glass still near the fireplace. Then it stopped, on her. He didn't speak right away. He took one step forward, then another. Shoes quiet on stone. "Who did this?" he asked. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Margaret laughed too quickly. "Oh, it's nothing. An accident. The rug can be replaced." Victor didn't look at her. He looked at Angela. Really looked. Took in the cloth in her hands. The red creeping through the fibers. The way her back stayed straight even on her knees. "Stand up," he said. The words landed like a command meant for the room, not just her. Angela hesitated for half a second. Then she rose. Slowly. The room felt smaller now. Closer. Every eye tracked the movement. Victor's gaze flicked to the stain, then back to her face. Something unreadable crossed his expression. Not pity, not anger, calculation. "This building has security logs," he said, turning slightly voice-carrying. "Elevator overrides, power interruptions. Everything is recorded." Margaret's smile froze. Victor took another step. Closer now. Close enough that Angela caught the faint scent of winter air on his coat. He spoke again, quieter this time. "Angela Brooks," he said like he'd always known it. Her breath caught. Just once. Go home, Victor said. You're done for tonight. Margaret found her voice. Now see here. Victor turned his head. Just enough. No, he said. The word cut clean. He reached into his coat and produced a card. Black. Unmarked. He held it out not to Margaret but to Angela. Tomorrow morning, he said. 8 sharp. Bring nothing but yourself. Angela took the card. Her fingers brushed his. The contact was brief, electric. Around them, the room held its breath. And somewhere deep inside, something long dormant began to stir. Angela did not sleep that night. She sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment coat, still on the black card placed between her hands, like a verdict waiting to be read. The clock above the sink ticked loud enough to feel accusatory. Outside, a siren passed, then another, the city doing what it always did, indifferent to one woman's fear. 8 sharp. No address printed. Just a name embossed so faint it only caught the light at certain angles. Victor Romano. She turned the card over. Nothing else. Angela exhaled slowly and leaned back. Her apartment was quiet in the way only old buildings got at night. Radiator ticking. Floorboards settling. The hum of the refrigerator. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. 1 missed call. 1 voicemail. From St. Andrew's Medical Center. She didn't play it yet. Instead, she went to the sink and washed her hands. The water ran hot. She scrubbed longer than necessary, as if the smell of wine and marble might still be clinging to her skin. When she finally dried them, they were steady. That surprised her. She pressed play. Ms. Brooks! This is Nurse Collins calling about your mother, Helen Brooks. Please call us back as soon as you can. It's not an emergency, but we need to discuss a change in her treatment plan. Not an emergency. Those words could mean everything or nothing. Angela closed her eyes. She rested her forehead against the cabinet door and stayed there until the tightness in her chest eased. Victor Romano. 8 in the morning. No address. Men like that didn't invite. They summoned. She had learned that lesson young, watching landlords smile while raising rent. Supervisors promise promotions that never came. Doctors talk around numbers instead of saying them out loud. Power never explained itself. It expected obedience and punished hesitation. Angela picked up her phone again and typed a message to her supervisor at the catering agency. Family emergency. Won't be available tomorrow. She didn't wait for a reply. At 6:30 in the morning, there was a knock. Not loud, not polite. Precise. Angela froze. Then she checked the peephole. A man in a gray coat stood in the hallway, late 40s, clean cut, hands folded behind his back like a man used to waiting. When she didn't open the door right away, he didn't knock again. He simply spoke. Ms. Brooks, car's downstairs. She opened the door. I haven't agreed to anything. The man inclined his head. Mr. Romano anticipated that. He asked me to tell you your mother's oncologist will be present at the meeting. Angela felt the floor shift beneath her feet. What meeting? The man met her eyes. His were calm, professional. You're already late. The ride across the city was quiet. The car was black, unmarked, clean to the point of sterility. The driver didn't speak. The man from the hallway sat beside her, hands resting on his knees. They passed neighborhoods Angela rarely crossed. Old money streets, new glass towers, a courthouse with flags snapping hard in the wind. Finally, the car slowed in front of a building she didn't recognize. It wasn't flashy, no signage, just limestone and tinted windows and a security desk set back behind bulletproof glass. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and polish. The man guided her down a hallway and into a conference room with no windows. A long table, leather chairs, a carafe of water already poured. Victor Romano stood at the far end, jacket off. Now sleeves rolled once. He looked like he had been there for hours. "Sit," he said. Angela sat. Her spine stayed straight, her hands folded in her lap. Victor took his time. He studied her the way some people studied chessboards, not looking at pieces, but at possibilities. "You didn't call," he said. "You didn't give me a number." A corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. "Fair." He slid a folder across the table. Thick. Neat. Angela didn't touch it. "You know why you were trapped in that elevator last night," Victor said. Angela held his gaze. "Yes." "Say it." "Because someone wanted to remind me where I belong." Victor nodded once. "And you?" "I don't belong where I'm tolerated," she said. "I belong where I'm paid." Silence followed. Not awkward. Deliberate. Victor leaned back. "That answer is why you're here." The door opened behind her. Soft footsteps. Angela turned. Nurse Collins entered, followed by a man in a dark suit she didn't recognize. The nurse smiled tightly. "Angela, I wasn't sure you'd make it." Angela stood. "Why are you here?" Victor answered for her. "Because your mother's treatment is being quietly discontinued at St. Andrew's in 6 weeks." The words landed heavy. Angela felt her pulse in her throat. "That's not possible." The man in the suit cleared his throat. "It is. The trial drug she's on is being reallocated. Funding issue." Angela looked at Nurse Collins. "You said it wasn't an emergency." "It isn't," the nurse said gently. "Not yet." Victor placed a hand flat on the table. "I don't like inefficiency," he said. "I also don't like cruelty disguised as policy." Angela's nails dug into her palm. "What does this have to do with me?" Victor slid the folder closer. "Everything." She opened it. Medical charts, transfer approvals, letters on private letterhead, numbers that made her breath catch, full coverage, experimental protocols. Names she recognized from headlines. Hospitals she had only ever seen in documentaries. "This isn't legal," she said. Victor didn't blink. "It's contractual." Angela looked up. "What do you want?" He stood, walked to the far wall, pressed a panel. The wall slid open. Beyond it was another room, larger. Monitors lined one-side screens alive with city maps, live feeds scrolling data. Phones rang softly. People moved with purpose, voices low. "This is not a business," Victor said without turning. "It's an ecosystem, one that runs whether people approve of it or not." Angela stayed seated. "You're telling me you can save my mother?" Victor turned. His expression hardened. "I'm telling you I already am." Her chest tightened. Anger flared sharp and fast. At what cost, Victor returned to the table. He stopped just short of her. "Your silence. Your discretion. And your judgment. My judgment about what?" "About people," he said. "About loyalty. About when something needs to be stopped before it poisons everything around it." Angela laughed once. It came out brittle. "You trapped me in an elevator to offer me a job." Victor's eyes darkened. "I trapped you in an elevator to see how you respond when no one is watching." She met his stare. "And you didn't scream," he said. "You didn't beg. You didn't pound the walls. You waited. You observed. You endured." He leaned in slightly. "That's power, Angela. Untaught, untrained, and very rare." She stood. The chair scraped softly behind her. "I'm not for sale." Victor straightened. "Neither am I." They stood facing each other now, the room humming around them. Two forces testing the edge. "I won't hurt people for you," Angela said. "I don't ask my people to hurt anyone," Victor replied. "I ask them to see clearly. and to speak when others stay silent. Angela thought of Margaret Whitmore's smile, the elevator lights dying, the laughter outside the doors. She thought of her mother's hands thin, now still warm when she held them. "What happens if I say no?" she asked. Victor didn't hesitate. "Then you walk out that door. Your mother gets 6 more weeks, and the world stays exactly the way it is." The truth of it settled heavy in her chest. Angela picked up the folder again. Closed it. 8 sharp, she said quietly. Tomorrow. Where do I start? Victor exhaled. Not relief. Approval. You already have, he said. The first thing Angela noticed was how quiet the building became when Victor Romano entered a room. Not silence exactly, more like restraint. Conversations didn't stop. They softened. Movements didn't freeze. They adjusted. People became careful without being told to. It reminded her of the way hospital rooms changed when a senior doctor walked in the air, tightening with expectation. By 8 the next morning, she was standing in a secure operation suite 3 floors below street level, wearing a borrowed badge clipped to her coat. Her name was printed cleanly in black. Angela Brooks. No title. Yet. Victor stood at the head of a long glass table. Around it sat men and women who did not look alike, but shared the same posture. Alert, controlled, watching everything without seeming to. Screens glowed along the walls filled with charts, financial ledgers, transit maps, legal filings. The city reduced to data. This is oversight. Victor said, his voice level. Not enforcement, not execution. Oversight. A man with silver hair frowned. We already have compliance teams. Victor turned his head just enough. You have teams that report what they're told to report. He gestured once subtle. Angela. Every eye shifted to her. Angela felt the weight of it immediately. She didn't flinch. She stepped forward, palms open, shoulders relaxed. Years of moving through hostile rooms had taught her how to take space without asking permission. She has no background in finance, someone said. Female voice. Sharp. Defensive. Victor nodded. Correct. No legal training. Another added. Also, correct. The silver-haired man leaned back. Then why is she here? Victor looked at Angela, not at them. Because she knows what cruelty looks like when it's dressed up as procedure. A few people exchanged glances. No one laughed. Victor continued. You will give her access to whatever she asks for. Within reason. Angela spoke for the first time. And if I ask for something unreasonable, Victor's gaze didn't leave hers. Then we'll find out why. The meeting moved on. Terms were discussed. Timelines. Risk exposure. Angela listened more than she spoke, absorbing patterns, noting who interrupted whom, who deferred, who bristled. Power revealed itself in small habits. The way one man always waited 3 seconds before responding. The way a woman on Victor's left never took notes, only watched faces. When the room finally cleared, Victor remained seated. Angela stayed standing. You didn't hesitate, he said. I did, she replied. I just didn't show it. That's better, he said. Fear acknowledged is useful. Fear displayed is expensive. She crossed her arms. You said this wasn't enforcement, but what you're doing feels like pressure. Victor stood. Pressure reveals fractures. He walked to one of the screens and tapped it awake. A building appeared. Familiar. White stone. Large windows. Angela's stomach tightened. Margaret Whitmore, Victor said. Chair of 3 nonprofit boards. Public face of civic virtue. Private architect of quiet harm. Angela's jaw set. "You're going after her because of me." Victor turned slowly. "I'm going after her because she locked an employee in an elevator and called it a lesson." He studied her. "Would you prefer I ignore that?" "No," Angela said. Then more quietly, "But I don't want revenge." Victor's expression didn't change. "Neither do I." He zoomed in on the screen. "This is correction. Files opened. Complaints buried. Settlements structured to silence." A pattern emerged, clear and ugly. Angela felt heat rise behind her eyes. Not tears, something sharper. "She does this often," Angela said. "Not just to staff, to tenants, to donors, to anyone she thinks won't fight back." Victor nodded, and now Angela inhaled. Now she assumes she's untouchable. Victor smiled then. It was brief, cold. No one is untouchable. The day moved fast after that. Angela reviewed contracts she barely understood at first, then more clearly as Victor explained what mattered and what didn't. She learned where leverage lived, in silence clauses, in delayed inspections, in timing. By late afternoon, her phone vibrated. A message from Nurse Collins. "Your mother's transfer is confirmed. New room ready this evening." Angela closed her eyes. Relief hit her so hard she had to steady herself against the table. Victor noticed. He said nothing. He simply slid a glass of water toward her. That night, she visited her mother. Helen Brooks looked smaller in the hospital bed, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "You're dressed like a lawyer," she said, smiling faintly. Angela laughed. It sounded strange in her own ears. "I'm just borrowing confidence." Helen studied her. "What did you do?" Angela took her hand. "I stopped waiting for permission." Helen squeezed back. "Good." On the way out, Angela checked her phone. A voicemail. Unknown number. She listened in the hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "Ms. Brooks," a familiar voice said. "Margaret Whitmore. Controlled. Tight. I've been informed you're no longer available for assignments. That's unfortunate. I trust this misunderstanding will be resolved quietly." Angela deleted the message. The next morning, the papers ran a small story on page 6. An audit, a board inquiry. "No names yet, just hints." Victor watched the coverage without comment. Angela stood beside him, arms folded. "Are you comfortable with this?" he asked. Angela didn't look away from the screen. "I'm comfortable with the truth." He studied her profile, the way her jaw tightened when she focused, the steadiness in her eyes. "You won't always be liked," he said. "I have never been liked," she replied. "I'm aiming for effective." That afternoon, someone tried to access her apartment. The building superintendent called flustered. Two men, well-dressed, asked questions. Victor's response was immediate. "She won't be staying there anymore." "I didn't agree to move," Angela said. "You didn't," he acknowledged. "I did." She turned on him. "You don't get to decide where I live." Victor met her anger head on. "And you don't get to be exposed while doing this work." They stood close now, the air between them taut. "This isn't protection," Angela said. "It's control." Victor's voice dropped. "Control is what keeps people alive." She searched his face for something, anything that resembled doubt. Found none. "Temporary," she said. "I choose when it ends." Victor inclined his head. "Agreed." That night, she slept in a guest room with no personal touches, just clean lines and heavy curtains. She lay awake listening to the unfamiliar quiet, her mind replaying everything that had changed in 48 hours. She thought of the elevator, the darkness, the laughter outside. She thought of the way Victor watched rooms, the way others watched storms calculating damage before it hit. And she realized something that unsettled her more than fear ever had. This was no longer about survival. This was about influence, and she was standing closer to it than she had ever imagined possible. The first threat arrived disguised as courtesy. It came in the form of an envelope slid under the door of the temporary apartment Victor had placed her in, heavy paper, thick cream stock. Her name typed perfectly centered. Angela noticed it the moment she stepped inside. Nothing else in the apartment had been touched. No forced entry, no mess. Just the envelope waiting. She didn't open it right away. She set her bag down, checked the windows, then the bathroom, the bedroom, the hallway. Everything looked untouched. Too untouched. That was the point. When she finally broke the seal, the letter inside was short. Ms. Brooks, some doors are not meant to be opened. Please consider stepping back before someone gets hurt. No signature. No threat spelled out. Just implication. Angela folded the paper once then again until it fit neatly in her pocket. Her hands didn't shake, but her stomach tightened. This wasn't Margaret Whitmore. This was cleaner, smarter, someone who understood pressure. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Victor. Do not leave the apartment. I'm on my way. She didn't reply. Instead, she sat at the small dining table and waited, eyes on the door, breath slow, mind sharp. When Victor arrived 20 minutes later, he didn't knock. The lock disengaged electronically, the door opening with a soft click. He stepped inside, jacket already off, sleeves, rolled eyes, scanning the room in a single sweep. You should have called, he said. You told me to observe, Angela replied. I'm observing. He spotted the envelope on the table. His jaw tightened. He picked it up, read the letter once, then tore it cleanly in half, then in quarters, then again, until it was nothing but scraps. This escalated faster than expected, he said. Angela watched him. That doesn't surprise you. No, he admitted. It concerns me. That's different. Victor met her gaze. Are you afraid? She considered the question. The honest answer rose easily. I'm alert. He nodded. Good. Fear makes people predictable. Alertness does not. He moved to the window and looked out over the street below. You need to understand something, he said. What we're uncovering doesn't stop at one woman with a penthouse and a cruel streak. It's a network. Philanthropy layered over extraction, charity used as camouflage. Angela leaned back in her chair. And they didn't expect someone like me to notice. They never do, Victor said. That's why you're dangerous. The word settled between them. Dangerous. Not as an insult, as a fact. The next few days moved like a tightening coil. Angela was brought deeper into the work, given access she hadn't expected so soon. Financial reports, nonprofit audits, private arbitration transcripts sealed from public view. She learned how reputations were laundered, how silence was purchased in installments, how harm became invisible through paperwork. She also learned who resented her. It showed in small ways. A delayed file. A question answered too slowly. A glance exchanged across the table when Victor wasn't looking. She clocked them all. The woman with the sharp voice from the first meeting, whose name was Elaine Porter, never addressed Angela directly. The silver-haired man, Thomas Reed, corrected her twice in one session, both times unnecessarily. Victor noticed. He said nothing. That worried her more than if he had. One afternoon, as Angela reviewed a stack of correspondence, Elaine stopped beside her desk, close enough to feel like a challenge. "You're moving very quickly," Elaine said. Angela didn't look up. "I'm moving at the speed of the data." Elaine smiled thinly. "Data can be interpreted." Angela met her eyes then. "So can motives." Elaine's smile faded. She walked away without another word. That evening, Angela visited her mother again. Helen looked stronger, color in her cheeks, less fog in her eyes. The new room was quiet, private sunlight slanting in through a wide window. "You're different," Helen said, watching her closely. Angela adjusted the blanket. "How so?" "You're not apologizing for existing," Helen said. "You used to do that, even when you didn't realize it." Angela sat back. "I'm tired of shrinking." Helen nodded. "Just make sure you're not hardening." The words followed Angela all the way back to the apartment. That night, the power went out. Not completely. Just enough to dim the lights to let shadows stretch longer than they should. Angela froze, listening. The building's generator kicked in a second later, but the message was clear. Someone was testing boundaries. She called Victor this time. "I know," he said before she could speak. "I'm already rerouting security." "This is getting personal," Angela said. "It always does," Victor replied. "When people realize systems don't protect them anymore." The next morning brought a surprise Angela hadn't anticipated. Margaret Whitmore was arrested. The charges were not dramatic. No handcuffs on the evening news. Just a brief statement from the district attorney's office about financial irregularities and obstruction. But the effect was immediate. Boards scrambled. Donors panicked. Names were quietly removed from websites. Angela watched the coverage from Victor's office, arms crossed, heart pounding. She didn't feel triumph. She felt gravity. "This won't end it," she said. "No," Victor agreed. "It will reveal who else is afraid." As if summoned by the thought, Victor's phone rang. He listened in silence, his expression hardening with every passing second. When he hung up, he looked at Angela differently. Not assessing, not instructing, warning. "They know it's you now," he said. Angela's chest tightened. "Because I'm visible." "Because you didn't play the role they assigned you?" Victor corrected. "They expected gratitude, compliance, silence." Angela stood. "Then we keep going." Victor studied her. "This is the part where most people step back." She didn't hesitate. "I'm not most people." For the first time since she'd met him, Victor looked something like pride crossed his face. It vanished quickly, replaced by something heavier. "Then you need to move," he said. "Tonight." She shook her head. "I won't run." "You're not running," Victor said. "You're repositioning." They drove in silence, the city blurring past the windows. When the car finally stopped, Angela frowned. "This is a courthouse." "Yes," Victor said. "Federal." Inside, they were ushered through corridors Angela had only seen on television. Security checkpoints, sealed doors, a conference room with no windows and a single American flag in the corner. A woman waited inside, late 60s, steel gray hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp with a lifetime of decisions. "Angela Brooks," the woman said. "I've been expecting you." Angela's pulse jumped. "Who are you?" "Judge Eleanor Watkins," she replied. "Retired, for now." Victor closed the door behind them. Eleanor gestured to a chair. "Sit. We don't have much time." Angela sat slowly. "What is this?" Eleanor leaned forward. "This is where your story stops being small." Angela felt the weight of the words settle deep in her chest. She glanced at Victor, who met her gaze steadily. This is the part, Eleanor continued, where people like you either disappear quietly or change the rules. Angela drew a slow breath. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that another line had just been crossed. Judge Eleanor Watkins did not waste time on pleasantries. She slid a slim folder across the table toward Angela, her movements precise, economical. "You're standing at the edge of something most people never see," she said. "Not power, consequence." Angela opened the folder. Inside were affidavits, sworn statements, names redacted but patterns unmistakable. Nonprofits, real estate trusts, development boards, a web of influence braided so tightly it looked almost elegant. "These are federal," Eleanor continued. "Buried. Deferred. Soft-killed by committees and calendar delays. Every one of them stalled because someone higher up decided stability mattered more than justice." Angela looked up. And now, Eleanor said, "the stability is cracking." Victor stood near the wall, arms folded, watching both women. He hadn't spoken since they entered the room. His presence was steady, contained, like a held breath. Eleanor tapped the folder. "What you did with Whitmore didn't just expose her. It showed the system a variable it can't control." Angela's pulse quickened. "Me?" "Yes," Eleanor said plainly. "You don't belong to their circles. You don't owe them favors. You don't need their approval. That makes you unpredictable." Angela closed the folder. "Unpredictable people don't last long." Eleanor's mouth curved slightly. "Only if they're alone." She glanced at Victor. "You brought her because you want legitimacy." Victor didn't deny it. "I want durability." Eleanor nodded. "Same thing at this stage." She turned back to Angela. "I'm assembling something informal, a pressure channel, oversight without bureaucracy. We don't prosecute, we surface, we force decisions into daylight." Angela absorbed that. "And you want me where?" "At the point of contact," Eleanor said, "where harm meets paperwork, where people expect silence and get questions instead." Angela exhaled slowly. "That puts a target on my back." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "You already have one." The meeting ended without ceremony. No contracts, no signatures, just understanding. As they walked out, Angela felt the building's weight recede behind her. The air outside was colder, sharper. She welcomed it. In the car, Victor finally spoke. "You don't have to do this." Angela turned toward him. "You knew I would." "Yes," he said. "That's why I brought you." They drove back toward the city's center. This time Angela noticed the route, the turns, the rhythm of the streets. Awareness layered over fear, sharpening it into something usable. That night she didn't go to the temporary apartment. Victor brought her to a different location. Smaller, older. A townhouse tucked between law offices and consulting firms, the kind of place that disappeared into its surroundings. "This is transitional," he said. "You'll be safe here." She stepped inside. The space was modest, clean, furnished but impersonal. A place meant for thinking, not living. "Define safe," she said. Victor met her eyes. "Protected, not isolated." She nodded once. "Good." Sleep came in fragments. Faces. Documents. Eleanor's voice. Margaret's smile collapsing. Angela woke before dawn, heart racing, then forced herself back into stillness. By 7, she was dressed and ready. The first call came at 9. A man named Harold Levin, voice shaking just enough to betray nerves. "I was told you're the person to speak to about the zoning appeal." Angela listened, asked questions, took notes. She didn't promise anything. The second call came an hour later. A woman. a whistleblower from a healthcare nonprofit. Her words rushed tangled with fear. Angela slowed her down, guided her through what mattered. By noon, the pattern was clear. People had been waiting. They didn't know for whom. They just knew the usual doors were closed. Angela became a new one. Word spread quietly. Not through headlines, through phone trees and back channels. People who had learned to whisper, learned how to speak again, carefully, cautiously. Victor checked in once briefly. "Are you overwhelmed?" "No," Angela said. "I'm focused." That evening she visited her mother. Helen noticed the change immediately. "You're standing taller," she said. Angela smiled. "I have a reason to." Helen's expression softened. "Just remember who you are." "I am," Angela said. "I finally am." On her way out of the hospital, two men waited near the exit. They didn't block her path. They didn't speak. They simply watched. Angela felt the familiar tightening in her chest. She didn't speed up. Didn't slow down. She met their gaze briefly, then kept walking. The car was already there. Victor's driver opened the door. "Ms. Brooks." Inside, Victor's jaw was set. "They're escalating." "I expected that," Angela replied. "You shouldn't have to," he said. She looked at him. "You built this world. I'm just learning how it works." He held her gaze longer than necessary. "That world eats people. Only if they let it," she said. Silence followed, heavy with unspoken things. The next morning, the first article ran. Not about her, about the system. An investigative piece. Careful, relentless. It cited documents Angela had surfaced, patterns she had flagged. No accusations yet, just facts laid end to end, impossible to ignore. Victor read it once, then again, then folded the paper neatly. "They'll come for you harder now," he said. Angela didn't look up from her screen. "Let them." He watched her work. The way she navigated information, separated signal from noise, applied pressure without overreaching. For the first time, Victor felt something unfamiliar shift in his chest. This wasn't a liability. This was a force. That night, Angela stood alone by the townhouse window, looking out at the streetlights. She thought of the elevator, the darkness, the choice to wait instead of break. She understood now. Waiting had never been weakness. It had been preparation. And the city, vast and flawed and aching with hidden wounds, was finally beginning to feel it. The call came at 2:17 in the morning. Angela was awake when her phone vibrated on the nightstand, the sound sharp in the quiet room. She reached for it without hesitation, already alert, already braced. Victor's name filled the screen. "They moved," he said the moment she answered. No greeting, no preamble. "Who?" she asked, sitting up. "Everyone who thought they could wait this out," he replied. "They're closing ranks." Angela swung her legs over the side of the bed. The townhouse felt different at night, smaller, the walls listening. "What does that mean for me?" A pause, short, measured. "It means the pressure channel Eleanor built just became the only thing standing between exposure and erasure." Angela closed her eyes for a beat. "Then it's working." "Yes," Victor said, "which makes it dangerous." By sunrise, the danger had a shape. 3 subpoenas were filed within hours, all targeting entities Angela had flagged. 2 were legitimate. 1 was not. The third came from a private legal consortium. She didn't recognize its language, deliberately vague, its reach broad enough to paralyze operations. Angela read it twice, then a third time slower. "This isn't about compliance," she said into the phone. "It's intimidation. They're testing whether you'll retreat," Victor replied. Angela set the document down. "I won't." "I know," he said. "But you need to understand the cost." She looked out the window at the waking street commuters already moving lives, continuing untouched by the machinery grinding beneath them. "Tell me. They'll come at your credibility," Victor said. "Your past, your finances, your family." Angela's jaw tightened. "My mother. Yes." The word landed heavier than any threat before it. Victor continued, his voice steady but edged now. "Security has been doubled at the hospital. Discreetly. She won't see it." Angela nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I don't want her scared." "She won't be," Victor said. "But you need to be ready." For what she didn't ask, she already knew. The first hit came that afternoon. An anonymous blog published a piece questioning Angela's qualifications, her sudden rise, her proximity to Victor Romano. It asked careful questions. Who funded her work? Who benefited? It never accused outright. It didn't need to. Doubt was the weapon. By evening, a cable news segment followed, quoting unnamed sources. Angela watched it in silence, arms crossed, pulse steady. "They're framing you as a proxy," Victor said from the other side of the room. He had come to the townhouse unannounced, his presence filling the space. A front. Angela turned to him. "Am I?" His eyes met hers, unflinching. "No. But I'm useful to you," she said. "Yes," he admitted. "And dangerous to them." She considered that. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Victor watched her carefully. "Most people don't like being useful." "I don't like being invisible," she replied. Silence followed. Not tense. Something else. Recognition. The next day, Angela was called to testify before an oversight committee. Not federal, not state. A hybrid group with just enough authority to demand answers and not enough courage to offer protection. The room was windowless, lit harshly from above. 12 faces sat behind a curved desk. Lawyers flanked the walls like furniture. Angela took her seat. She didn't bring notes. "Ms. Brooks." The chair began, a man in his late 60s with a practiced tone. "Do you understand why you're here?" "Yes," Angela said. "You want to know who I work for?" A ripple moved through the room. The man cleared his throat. "And who is that?" Angela didn't hesitate. "The public." A murmur. The chair frowned. "That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters," Angela replied. Questions followed, rapid, layered, designed to trip her. She answered calmly, directly, never volunteering more than necessary, never deflecting without purpose. When asked about Victor Romano, she chose her words carefully. "He provides resources. He does not dictate outcomes. And if he withdrew support, one member asked." Angela met his gaze. Then the truth would still be the truth. The hearing ended without resolution. That was intentional. Uncertainty was leverage. Outside reporters waited. Cameras, microphones. Angela stopped before the steps. One question cut through the noise. "Ms. Brooks, are you afraid?" Angela looked straight ahead. "I'm accountable." That night, Victor poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. "You did well." "I did what was necessary," she said. He studied her. "You could step back now." She shook her head. "They'd still come for me." "Yes," he agreed, "but differently." She met his gaze. "I won't shrink to make this easier for anyone." Victor set his glass down slowly. "That stubbornness is going to cost you." "It already has," Angela said. and it's still worth it. He looked at her, then not as an asset, not as a variable, but as something else entirely. Something that unsettled him. The next escalation came quietly. Angela returned to the townhouse one evening to find the door ajar. She froze. Her hand went to her phone. Victor answered on the first ring. "Don't move," he said. "I'm already inside," she replied. A beat. "Stay where you are." She listened. The house was silent. Too silent. Footsteps approached from the back hallway. Angela straightened, heart pounding now, sharp and loud. A figure emerged from the shadows. Elaine Porter. Her suit was immaculate. Her expression, tight eyes bright with something close to desperation. "We need to talk," Elaine said. Angela didn't lower her guard. "You broke into my residence." Elaine scoffed softly. "Please, this place isn't yours. None of it is." Angela's voice stayed calm. "What do you want?" Elaine took a step closer. "An understanding. You're disrupting systems that took decades to stabilize." "They were never stable," Angela said. "They were insulated." Elaine's composure cracked. "You don't know what you're dismantling." "I know exactly what I'm dismantling," Angela replied. "And who benefits from it staying intact?" Elaine's gaze flicked toward the door, then back. "Walk away," she said. "Take a settlement, a position, anything." "This doesn't end well for people like you." Angela stepped forward. "People like me." Elaine hesitated. "Just long enough." Angela saw it then. Not hatred. Fear. "This already ended badly," Angela said softly. "For a lot of people. I'm just making sure it doesn't stay hidden." Sirens sounded in the distance. Elaine stiffened. Victor's voice came through Angela's phone, low and dangerous. "Step away from her." Elaine turned pale. She backed up, hands raised slightly. "You think you've won?" she said. "You haven't." She slipped past Angela and disappeared into the night. Angela stood there breathing hard, the adrenaline slow to fade. Victor arrived minutes later, his presence like gravity reasserting itself. He checked the house, the locks, the perimeter. When he finally turned to her, his voice was tight. "They crossed a line." "They crossed it because they're losing," Angela said. He looked at her for a long moment. "You should be terrified." Angela met his gaze. "I'm resolved." Victor exhaled slowly. Outside, the city hummed on, unaware that its quiet bargains were unraveling. Inside, Angela Brooks stood at the center of it, no longer waiting, no longer watching. She was ready for whatever came next. The first arrest happened before dawn. Angela learned about it from a secure message Victor forwarded without commentary. A single name. Thomas Reed, silver-haired, formerly untouchable, charged with obstruction, witness tampering, and misuse of charitable funds. The kind of charges that sounded administrative until you understood the sentences attached to them. She stared at the screen, pulse steady, mind racing. This wasn't symbolic. This was real. Someone had decided the risk of exposure outweighed the protection of old alliances. By 8 in the morning, the phones were already lighting up. Not whistleblowers this time, not victims, power brokers. They called cautiously, their voices polished, offering cooperation access explanations. Some asked for meetings, others asked for forgiveness without using the word. Angela listened, took notes, and said very little. Silence, she had learned, was its own form of leverage. Victor watched her from across the room, coffee untouched in his hand. "They're trying to map you," he said. "They won't succeed," Angela replied. "Why?" "Because I don't move like they expect," she said. "I don't want what they think I want." Victor studied her. "And what do you want?" Angela didn't answer right away. The question reached deeper than strategy. "I want this to stop being rare," she said finally. "Accountability shouldn't feel like a miracle." Victor nodded once. "That's a dangerous ambition. So is complacency." The retaliation came disguised as due process. An ethics complaint was filed against Angela that afternoon, alleging conflict of interest, coercion, misuse of influence. It was clean, thorough, backed by affidavits that twisted timelines just enough to sound plausible. Elaine Porter's fingerprints were all over it. Victor read the complaint in silence. When he finished, he folded it carefully. "They're pushing for a suspension." Angela felt the familiar tightening in her chest. And they might get it," he said. "Temporarily." She met his gaze. "Then we go public." Victor's jaw tightened. "That will burn bridges you may need later." Angela shook her head. "There won't be a later if we let them frame this." He held her stare for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." The press conference was scheduled for noon. Angela stood at the podium, lights glaring, cameras humming. The room smelled like electricity and old carpet. Reporters packed in tight notebooks, ready eyes sharp. She spoke plainly. About the work, about the threats, about the pattern of retaliation when oversight disrupted profit. She didn't name names. She didn't need to. When the questions came, they were aggressive. "Ms. Brooks, are you being used by Victor Romano to dismantle his competitors?" Angela didn't flinch. "If accountability dismantles someone, they were standing on rot." A murmur rippled through the room. Another reporter leaned forward. "Do you deny that your access comes from Mr. Romano's influence?" Angela paused. "Just long enough." "I don't deny support," she said. "I deny control." The clip ran everywhere within the hour. So did the response. By late afternoon, 2 more arrests followed. A zoning commissioner, a foundation director. The network was fracturing stress lines, turning into breaks. Angela sat alone in the townhouse as dusk settled, the city lights flickering on outside. For the first time since this began, she felt something close to fear creep in, cold and insistent. Not for herself, for what came next. Her phone rang. "Eleanor Watkins." "You've crossed the threshold," Eleanor said without preamble. "There's no return to normal after this." "I don't want normal," Angela replied. "Good," Eleanor said, "because you're about to be tested." The test arrived that night. Angela was halfway through a report when the sound hit her, sharp and unmistakable. Glass shattering. Somewhere downstairs. She was on her feet instantly, heart slamming. Her hand went to the drawer where Victor insisted she keep the panic device. She didn't activate it yet. She listened. Footsteps. Heavy. Multiple. The back door. Angela moved quietly, every sense sharpened. She edged toward the hallway, breath-controlled mind racing through exits, cover options. Then she heard it. A voice she recognized. Margaret Whitmore. "You don't get to erase me!" Margaret hissed, her tone frayed, unhinged. "You think you're some kind of savior!" Angela stepped into the living room. Margaret stood near the shattered window, hair disheveled, eyes wild. Blood streaked one hand where she'd cut herself climbing in. She looked smaller than Angela remembered. Desperate. "This is trespassing," Angela said calmly. Margaret laughed brittle. "You ruined my life." Angela held her ground. "Your choices did that." Margaret's gaze darted around the room. "You think they'll protect you forever?" "Men like Victor don't protect. They own." Angela's voice stayed even. "You don't know him." Margaret sneered. "I know his kind." Angela took a step closer. And I know yours. Margaret's composure shattered. I gave everything, she shouted. I built institutions. I raised money. I made things possible. You extracted, Angela said softly, and called it generosity. Margaret lunged. Angela reacted without thinking. She sidestepped, grabbed Margaret's wrist, twisted just enough to break momentum. Margaret cried out, stumbling back. Sirens wailed outside, sudden and close. Margaret froze. Her face collapsed. You planned this. No, Angela said. I survived it. Police flooded the room moments later, drawn by alarms Victor had activated remotely the instant the window broke. Margaret was taken away, screaming accusations that no one bothered to record. When the house was finally quiet again, Angela sank onto the couch, adrenaline draining fast, leaving her shaky. Victor arrived minutes later. He didn't speak at first. He knelt in front of her, checking her for injuries, his hands careful, precise. Are you hurt? He asked. No, she said. Just tired. His jaw clenched. This is my fault. Angela shook her head. This is the cost. He looked at her, then really looked as if seeing her fully for the first time. Not as a strategist, not as a symbol, as a force. They will not stop, he said quietly. Even now. Angela met his gaze, exhaustion and resolve intertwining. Then neither will I. Silence settled between them, heavy, but unbroken. Outside the city pulsed on, unaware that another illusion had collapsed. Inside, Angela Brooks understood something with startling clarity. This was no longer about exposing corruption. It was about who would define what came after. The morning after Margaret Whitmore was taken away, the city felt deceptively calm. Angela stood by the townhouse window, watching commuters hurry along sidewalks slick with last night's rain, unaware of how close the ground beneath them had shifted. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Same face, same eyes. But something in her posture had changed. She no longer looked like someone waiting for permission. Victor joined her, silently handing her a cup of coffee she hadn't asked for, but accepted. They're spinning it already, he said. Mental health crisis, personal grievance, anything but accountability. Angela nodded. Of course they are. He watched her carefully. This would be the moment most people retreat. You've done enough. You could step back and let the system digest what's already out there. She didn't turn from the window. If I step back now, they'll rewrite the story. Yes, Victor agreed. They always do. Angela finally faced him. Then we don't let them. The day unfolded like a chessboard, tipping toward endgame. Judge Watkins called first, her voice sharper than usual. The ethics complaint against you was withdrawn this morning, she said. Quietly. Too quietly. That means they're regrouping, Angela replied. Yes, Eleanor said. And preparing something bigger. By noon, Angela was sitting in a federal office building she'd never expected to enter without handcuffs. The room was smaller than she imagined. Functional. A flag in the corner. Fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Across from her sat 2 men and 1 woman, all older, all careful. The woman spoke first. Ms. Brooks, we're forming a special review task force, off the books for now. Angela met her gaze. And you want me to do what? Not lead it, the woman said. Advise it. Angela leaned back. So I take the risk without the authority. The man on the left cleared his throat. You take the influence without the visibility. Angela smiled faintly. You mean I stay useful, but deniable? The woman didn't flinch. Yes. Angela considered the offer. This was the compromise, the system's attempt to absorb her without changing its shape. No, Angela said. Silence fell. Victor, seated slightly behind her, said nothing. He watched. "I'm not here to be an accessory to reform," Angela continued calmly. "I'm here to change how it works." The woman's expression tightened. "You're asking for more than we can give." Angela stood. "Then you're asking for less than I'm willing to accept." They didn't stop her when she left. Outside, Victor matched her stride. That was a calculated refusal. "It was necessary," Angela said. "They want control without responsibility." Victor glanced at her. "You're closing doors. I'm opening the right ones." By evening, the backlash arrived in force. An injunction was filed attempting to block further disclosures tied to Angela's work. Donors withdrew funding from organizations cooperating with her. Anonymous threats returned sharper, now less subtle. Angela read them all without comment. She categorized, prioritized, discarded. That night she visited her mother. Helen sat propped up in bed, reading glasses perched low on her nose. She looked up and smiled. "You look like you haven't slept." Angela pulled a chair close. "I will." Helen studied her carefully. "Are you safe?" Angela hesitated just a fraction. "I'm protected." Helen nodded slowly. "That's not the same thing." Angela reached for her hand. "I know." Helen squeezed back. "Whatever you're doing, it matters. I can see it in you." Angela swallowed. "I hope it's enough." "It doesn't have to be perfect," Helen said. "It just has to be honest." On the drive back, Victor spoke quietly. "You could still walk away." Angela turned toward him. "Why do you keep offering that?" "Because I know what this costs," he replied. "And because once you go where you're headed, there's no shelter left." Angela considered that. The sleepless nights. The threats. The constant tension humming beneath her skin. "I don't want shelter," she said. "I want clarity." He watched her, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "You already have it." The turning point came 2 days later. Angela was reviewing documents late into the night when a new file appeared in the secure channel. No sender listed. No explanation. Just a title. Oversight Memorandum Draft. She opened it. Her breath caught. It wasn't evidence. It was architecture. A framework outlining a permanent independent oversight body with real authority, mandatory transparency, and public accountability. Names were listed. Judges, prosecutors, auditors. People with reputations too solid to quietly discredit. At the bottom, one line stood out. Interim Director Angela Brooks. Her phone rang immediately. "Eleanor Watkins." "You weren't supposed to see that yet," she said. Angela's voice was steady. "You were waiting to see if I'd break." "Yes," Eleanor admitted. "You didn't." Angela closed the file. "This puts everything on the table." "It puts you on the table," Eleanor corrected. "Front and center." Angela looked around the quiet room, the weight of the moment pressing in. "If I do this, there's no ambiguity left." "No," Eleanor said. "There's accountability." Angela exhaled slowly. "Then I'll do it." Victor arrived minutes later, having already been informed. He stood across from her eyes, dark, searching. "They're asking you to step into the light," he said. "Yes." "And you know what that means." "I do." He was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Then I'll adjust." She met his gaze. "I'm not doing this for you." "I know," he said. "That's why it works." The announcement was made the following morning. No fanfare. No victory speech. Just a press release, precise and unadorned. The city reacted slowly at first, then all at once. Headlines followed. Commentary. outrage, relief. Angela watched it unfold from the townhouse phone buzzing non-stop. Victor stood nearby, hands in his pockets. "They'll come harder now," he said. Angela looked at the screen, then at him. Let them. Outside, the city shifted again, this time visibly. And for the first time since all of this began, Angela didn't feel like she was reacting to events. She was setting them in motion. The backlash arrived exactly 48 hours after the announcement. It didn't come as shouting or threats this time. It came as paperwork. Lawsuits filed in multiple jurisdictions within minutes of each other. Emergency injunctions. Motions to delay. Motions to disqualify. A coordinated attempt to drown the new oversight body in procedure before it could take its first breath. Angela stood in the temporary office the task force had secured, sleeves rolled up, eyes moving from screen to screen. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours, but fatigue had sharpened her focus instead of dulling it. The noise no longer rattled her. She could see the pattern. "They're trying to split jurisdiction," she said, pointing to a highlighted section. "Force us to fight on 5 fronts." A senior attorney across the table nodded. "If we chase all of them, we lose momentum." Angela straightened. "Then we don't chase." Silence followed. A dozen people waited, watching her. "We consolidate," she continued. "Choose one venue, one fight. Make them come to us." The attorney frowned. "That's risky." Angela met his gaze. "So is hiding." Victor watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had insisted on staying out of the formal structure, but his presence was a constant grounding force. When Angela glanced at him, he gave the smallest nod. "Proceed." By noon, the decision was made. A single federal court, a single filing, clean, direct, impossible to ignore. The press reaction was immediate. Commentators called it reckless. Others called it overdue. Angela didn't watch. She focused on the work. Calls came in waves. Some cooperative, some furious. One senator's office demanded a meeting within the hour. Angela declined. "They're not used to being told no," Victor observed quietly. "They'll adapt," Angela replied. "Or they won't." The personal attacks escalated that evening. An old eviction notice resurfaced online, stripped of context. A former supervisor gave a carefully worded interview questioning Angela's temperament. Someone leaked her salary, implying impropriety. Angela read it all in silence, then she closed the laptop. "Enough," Victor said, his voice low. "This is turning into character assassination." "It's supposed to," Angela replied. "They want me defensive." He stepped closer. "And are you—" She looked up at him. "No. I'm finished explaining myself." That night, the call came that changed the equation. It was Eleanor Watkins, her voice tight. "They've moved to remove you." Angela's pulse jumped. "On what grounds?" "None that will hold," Eleanor said. "But they don't need it to hold. They just need chaos." Angela exhaled slowly. When tomorrow morning, Eleanor replied, "Closed session." Angela looked at Victor. He had gone still. "They'll vote," Eleanor continued. "If it passes, you're out before the oversight body is fully operational." Angela's mind raced. "Then we make it operational tonight." There was a pause. "That's not how—" "It is now," Angela said. "Send me the emergency charter provisions." Eleanor hesitated. Then quietly, "You're forcing their hand." "Yes," Angela replied. "That's the point." The night blurred into motion. Documents finalized. Appointments confirmed. Authority invoked just shy of midnight. By the time the city slept, the oversight body existed not just in name, but in function. Angela signed the final order at 12:43 in the morning. Her hand was steady. The next day's closed session turned into a spectacle. Word leaked, cameras gathered, senators arrived flanked by aides and expressions of outrage carefully rehearsed. Angela walked in alone. The room buzzed with tension. She took her seat at the center of the table, posture straight gaze level. A senior committee member spoke first. "Ms. Brooks, you've exceeded your mandate." Angela didn't blink. "I've fulfilled it." "This body was not meant to be permanent," another voice snapped. Angela turned toward him. Neither was corruption. Murmurs rippled through the room. A third member leaned forward. "You're out of your depth." Angela met his stare. "You're afraid of daylight." The vote was called. Before it could proceed, a clerk entered, pale, whispering urgently into the chair's ear. The chair's expression shifted. He cleared his throat. "We've just been informed that several members of this committee are now subjects of active review." Silence slammed into the room. Angela sat back, heart pounding now, sharp and loud. She hadn't known who would fall. She only knew the net was wide. The vote was postponed, indefinitely. Outside, reporters surged forward. Angela stopped at the top of the steps. "Ms. Brooks," someone shouted. "Are you trying to dismantle the system?" Angela looked out at the crowd, the microphones, the faces hungry for narrative. "No," she said clearly. "I'm trying to make it work." That night she returned to the townhouse and finally let herself sit. The adrenaline drained fast, leaving her hollowed out. Victor knelt in front of her, his hands gentle on her wrists. "You should rest." She looked at him, really looked. The man who had opened the door. The man who had protected her without ever asking her to be smaller. "I don't know how long I can keep this up," she admitted. Victor's voice softened. "You don't have to do it alone." She searched his face. "That's not what I'm afraid of." "What are you afraid of?" he asked. "That this will take everything," Angela said quietly. "And there won't be anything left of me when it's done." Victor held her gaze unwavering. "You're not being consumed," he said. "You're being revealed." She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe. Outside, the city hummed restless, uncertain. Inside, Angela Brooks understood that the final test wasn't whether the system would break. It was whether she could hold her ground when it did. The hearing that everyone expected to end her career became the moment that defined it. Angela walked into the federal chamber without notes, without aides, whispering in her ear, without armor beyond the calm she had learned to trust. The room was larger than the last, older, carved with symbols of permanence meant to intimidate those who passed through. Cameras lined the back wall. Officials filled the benches, some wary, some defiant, some quietly relieved that someone else was standing where they never dared to. She took her seat and waited. The chair opened with formality's voice, even words rehearsed. Jurisdiction, authority, precedent. Angela listened, hands folded, eyes steady. She did not interrupt. She did not rush. When her turn came, the room leaned forward without realizing it. She spoke plainly, about systems designed to exhaust truth rather than confront it, about how procedure had become a shield for harm instead of a tool for justice, about the cost of silence paid not by institutions but by people whose names never made it into reports. She did not raise her voice. She did not dramatize. She named facts and let them breathe. When challenged, she answered without defensiveness. When accused of ambition, she did not deny it. She reframed it. Ambition, she said, was not the desire for power, but the refusal to accept decay as normal. The opposition tried once more to corner her, to force a misstep, to provoke emotion they could exploit. Angela met it with stillness. She had lived too long being underestimated to fall into that trap now. By the time the gavel fell, the outcome was already clear. The oversight body would stand, its authority would be affirmed, its scope expanded, not because the room had suddenly grown brave, but because retreat had become more dangerous than change. Outside, the city responded in waves. Headlines turned cautious, then curious, then quietly admiring. Editorials shifted tone. Whistleblowers who had waited decades stepped forward. Institutions announced reforms they had once sworn were impossible. Angela did not celebrate. She returned to work. Weeks passed. The noise softened. The urgency became routine. Systems adjusted, some honestly, others grudgingly. Accountability settled in like a weather change, uncomfortable at first, then inevitable. One evening, Angela sat beside her mother in the hospital garden, the air warm, the light fading gently. Helen looked stronger now, her laughter easier, her steps surer. She watched Angela with the knowing gaze of someone who had always understood the cost of standing upright. "You didn't disappear," Helen said quietly. Angela smiled. "Neither did you." They sat in companionable silence, the kind that came only after long storms. Later that night, Angela returned to the townhouse one last time. Boxes waited by the door. Her life was shifting again, not upward, not downward, but forward. Victor stood near the window, hands in his pockets. The city reflected faintly in the glass behind him. "They offered me a permanent office," she said. "I assumed they would," he replied. "I accepted." Angela continued. "On my terms." Victor turned, studying her, with an expression that held respect rather than possession. "Of course you did." They stood together without touching, without needing to. Whatever their connection was, it had been forged in fire and restraint, not dependency. It would either endure or it would not, but it would never diminish her. As dawn approached, Angela stepped outside and breathed in the city she had helped force into the light. It was still flawed, still resistant, still capable of harm, but it was no longer unchallenged. She thought back to the elevator, the darkness, the laughter on the other side of the doors. She understood now that moment had not been the beginning of her story. It had been the end of her waiting. Angela Brooks walked forward with clarity, with resolve, with a quiet power that did not demand attention, but commanded it all the same. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments by writing 3 words in English: stand for truth.